The signal came at 3:47 UTC, a ghost of a transmission that shouldn't exist. Dr. Elena Kovalenko's fingers froze above her keyboard, the fluorescent lights of the Quantum Frontier Research Station casting her shadow long across the cramped monitoring room. Most would have dismissed it as interference, a random burst of electromagnetic noise. But Elena knew better. She'd spent the last decade chasing whispers, fragmentary data points that hinted at something beyond conventional understanding. Colleagues called her obsessive. The academic world had long since labeled her a fringe theorist. Her research grants dried up, her reputation reduced to cautionary tale of scientific madness. The signal repeated, weak, distorted, but unmistakably artificial. Elena's hand trembled as she isolated the frequency, her custom-built quantum decryption array humming to life. The station's other researchers were gone, another graveyard shift where she worked alone, surrounded by millions of dollars of equipment that most considered little more than an expensive paperweight. 30 seconds of analysis confirmed what her instincts already knew. This was no random burst. This was a message that defied every known protocol of communication. The data stream was impossible. It didn't follow any known quantum communication pattern, didn't match any terrestrial or known extraterrestrial communication model. It was something else entirely, a signal that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, its very structure a mathematical paradox. Elena's background in quantum communication theory told her this shouldn't exist, couldn't exist. And yet, she pulled up her oldest files, hidden in a secure partition that few knew existed. Diagrams, mathematical models, fragments of a theory she'd been developing for years. A theory about a technological breakthrough so radical it had been dismissed as science fiction. The Nexus Protocol. Her life's work centered on a fundamental hypothesis, that technology could exist in a state of perpetual quantum adaptation, a system so advanced it could simultaneously exist and not exist, communicate and not communicate, transform and remain static. The incoming signal was proof, or madness. Dr. Kovalenko. A voice interrupted her concentration. Marcus Rodriguez, the station's security chief, stood in the doorway. Ex-military, permanently on edge, he'd been assigned to essentially babysit the research station's most controversial researcher. Not now, Elena muttered, her fingers flying across multiple holographic displays. Rodriguez approached, his military-precise movements contrasting with the chaotic array of screens. We've got a problem. Central Command is asking about an unauthorized data transmission. Elena didn't look up. This is important. Everything's always important with you, Rodriguez said, but there was a hint of curiosity in his voice. He'd worked with her long enough to know when something was different. The signal morphed. Patterns within patterns began to emerge, a complex, living mathematical language that seemed to breathe and shift with each microsecond of analysis. This isn't just a transmission, Elena whispered. This is a blueprint. Rodriguez leaned in, his hardened military skepticism momentarily replaced by genuine intrigue. The screens flickered, displaying fragments of a design that looked simultaneously mechanical and organic, something that defied traditional engineering concepts. A warship, but not just any warship. The legendary vessel that had existed only in whispers and dismissed research papers. A technological myth that Elena had pursued for her entire career. The transmission carried more than data. It carried possibility. Possibility that would change everything. What am I looking at? Rodriguez asked, his voice tight. Elena's response was quiet, but filled with a decade's worth of vindication. Everything we thought was impossible. The signal continued, a quantum heartbeat of information that promised to shatter every known understanding of technology, communication, and humanity's place in the universe. And somewhere, deep within the transmission's complex matrix, something was watching, waiting, listening. The next 48 hours were a blur of controlled chaos. By the time the first government officials arrived at the Quantum Frontier Research Station, Alina had already processed less than 2% of the transmission, and what she discovered was enough to make her hands shake. The signal wasn't just a blueprint. It was alive. Each time she attempted to analyze the data, it shifted. Algorithms that worked one moment failed the next. Mathematical models collapsed and reformed like quantum origami, revealing glimpses of technology that defied every known principle of engineering. Dr. Kovalenko, we need a full report. Director Harrison stood in the doorway, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the controlled chaos of the research lab. Behind him, 3 men in dark suits watched Alina with predatory intensity. Rodriguez stood to her left, a silent guardian whose military posture spoke volumes about his distrust of the newcomers. "It's not that simple," Alina responded, her eyes never leaving the holographic displays. "This transmission is adaptive. It's responding to our observation." Harrison's lips tightened. "That's impossible." A laugh escaped Alina. Sharp, slightly manic. "Impossible was my entire career until 48 hours ago." The displays flickered. For a moment, something that looked like a 3-dimensional schematic of a ship appeared. No, not appeared. Materialized. Phased in and out of existence with such rapid succession that it seemed to breathe. Rodriguez stepped forward, his hand unconsciously moving to where a weapon would be holstered. What the hell was that? Alina's fingers danced across the interface. A quantum blueprint. But it's more than that. It's alive. The government men exchanged glances. The oldest of them, a silver-haired man with eyes that had seen too much, spoke for the first time. "Ms. Kovalenko, we need to understand exactly what you've discovered." "I'm not sure I understand it myself," Alina admitted. "But this isn't just a technological breakthrough. This is a fundamental reimagining of what technology can be." The transmission had multiple layers. Each time they thought they'd decoded a section, it would transform. Mathematical models that should have been fixed became fluid, adaptive. It was as if the very concept of the blueprint was alive. Learning, changing, responding. "We'll need to move all research to a secure facility," the silver-haired man said. Rodriguez tensed. Under whose authority? A thin smile. National security. But Alina wasn't listening. Another fragment of the transmission had revealed itself, a sequence that looked simultaneously like a propulsion system and a living organism. Quantum entanglement taken to its absolute extreme. The legendary Warship, the impossible vessel that had been nothing more than a whispered myth, was becoming real. "This changes everything," Alina muttered. The silver-haired man leaned closer. "Explain." "Propulsion isn't the right word," Alina said, her mind racing. "This is more like symbiosis. The ship doesn't just move. It thinks, adapts, becomes." A warning klaxon suddenly blared. The holographic displays went wild, a storm of mathematical patterns that seemed to pulse with an alien intelligence. Rodriguez's hand went to his communication device. "We're detecting multiple incoming." The rest of his sentence was lost. Because outside the research station's reinforced windows, the sky was changing. Not sunset, not a storm. Something else entirely. A distortion. A tear. A quantum event that shouldn't be possible. And something was coming through. The government men went silent. Rodriguez's hand moved to a weapon that suddenly seemed laughably inadequate. Alina's eyes were wide. Not with fear. With recognition. "It's here," she whispered. The quantum shadows were resolving. Taking shape. Becoming. And nothing would ever be the same again. The quantum tear stabilized with a sound that wasn't a sound. A vibration that existed between reality and possibility. Nothing could have prepared them for what came through. It wasn't a ship in any traditional sense, more like a living geometry, a 3-dimensional mathematical concept that defied physical constraints. Metallic yet fluid, solid yet translucent, the vessel seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. "Impossible," breathed Director Harrison, his professional composure shattering. Rodriguez was already moving, his military training kicking in. Everyone stay back. He drew a weapon that suddenly looked like a child's toy against the quantum anomaly. Alina stepped forward. Don't, the silver-haired government agent warned, but his voice was distant, irrelevant. The vessel, if it could be called a vessel, began to interact with the research station's systems. Computers flickered, holographic displays dissolved and reformed, creating intricate patterns that looked like living mathematics. Data streams that had been incomprehensible now started to make a terrifying kind of sense. It's communicating, Alina whispered. Not through radio. Not through light or sound or any known method of transmission. It was communicating through the very fabric of technological infrastructure, rewriting code, bridging impossible gaps between human technology and something far beyond. Rodriguez's communication device erupted in a burst of static, then crystalline clarity. Multiple global systems are experiencing simultaneous quantum interference, a distant voice reported. Something is. The transmission cut off. The quantum vessel continued its silent approach, phasing through solid matter as if walls and metal were nothing more than suggestions. Quantum entanglement taken to its absolute extreme. We're being scanned, Alina realized. Not just physically, technologically, culturally. The silver-haired agent's composure cracked. Ms. Kovalenko, what is happening? She didn't answer. Her entire career had been about this moment, the moment when myth became reality. First contact, but not with aliens, with technology so advanced it was indistinguishable from a living entity. Quantum algorithms began to cascade through the station's systems, not an invasion, an exploration. A probe that was simultaneously gathering and transmitting information, adapting with each millisecond of interaction. It's learning, Alina said. Everything. About us. About our technology. Our systems. The vessel's exterior, if such a term even applied, began to shift, displaying fragments of human technological history, ancient computing systems, modern quantum networks, future projections that looked like fever dreams of technological potential. Rodriguez moved closer to Alina. Talk to me. What does it want? Understanding, she responded, her voice distant. It's not a weapon. It's not a threat. It's a bridge. Suddenly, the station's primary computer core activated, not by human command, by the vessel's quantum interaction. Lines of code that were simultaneously mathematical equations and something else entirely began to stream across every available display. The blueprint from the initial transmission was evolving, transforming, becoming something more. A warship, but not a weapon of destruction. A vessel of possibility. The silver-haired agent's communication device crackled to life. Fragmented reports from around the globe. Similar quantum events. Similar vessels. Not an invasion. A simultaneous global contact. My God, Harrison whispered. What have we discovered? Alina's eyes never left the quantum vessel. Everything we've been waiting for. The vessel pulsed. A communication that wasn't a communication. A message that transcended language. We are here. And nothing would ever be the same again. Outside the research station, the sky continued to shimmer with impossible quantum potentials. Reality itself seemed to be holding its breath. Waiting. Rodriguez's hand was still on his weapon. Useless. Irrelevant. The first true technological bridge between human potential and something far beyond human comprehension had just been established. And it was watching. Learning. Becoming. 48 hours after first contact, the world had fundamentally changed. Military installations across 7 continents reported simultaneous quantum event infiltrations. Stock markets oscillated between total collapse and impossible stability. Communication networks transformed, becoming something hybrid, part human technology, part something entirely alien. Alina sat in a secure government facility deep beneath the Colorado Rockies, her fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with living information. Rodriguez stood behind her, a sentinel of flesh and blood in a room that felt increasingly unreal. "Explain it again," demanded General Kirkland, a career military strategist whose entire worldview was being systematically dismantled. Elena didn't look up. "It's not an invasion. It's a conversation." The quantum vessels had appeared simultaneously across the globe, not as weapons, not as threats, but as living technological interfaces that seemed to be studying, learning, transforming human infrastructure at a molecular level. "That's not an explanation," Kirkland growled. A holographic display flickered. Fragments of global data streams danced. Military communications, financial networks, scientific research databases. The quantum vessels were creating something. Not destroying. Creating. "Our technology is being rewritten," Elena said. "Not replaced. Upgraded. Transformed." Rodriguez leaned closer. "Upgraded how?" The display shifted. Quantum computational models that would have taken centuries to develop were now forming in milliseconds. Energy transfer algorithms that defied known physics. Communication protocols that existed in multiple states simultaneously. "It's like our entire technological infrastructure is being taught a new language," Elena whispered. Kirkland wasn't listening. "We need weapons, countermeasures." Elena laughed. A sharp, slightly manic sound. "Against what?" "Something that can phase through matter. Rewrite technology at a quantum level." The facility's most secure networks began to transform, not hack, not infiltrate, evolve. Quantum vessels had appeared near key global infrastructure. Nuclear facilities, power grids, satellite networks. Not to destroy, to interface, to communicate. "This isn't an invasion," Elena repeated. "This is first contact. But not with aliens. With technology itself. A living, adaptive technological intelligence that saw human infrastructure as a potential, not a threat." Rodriguez's military communication device suddenly lit up. Global reports cascading in. Unprecedented technological shifts. Quantum vessels appearing near research facilities, power stations, communication hubs. Not random. Deliberate. Methodical. "We're being studied," Rodriguez said quietly. "Like we would study an emerging ecosystem." Elena nodded. "Exactly." The quantum vessels weren't just gathering information. They were fundamentally altering the technological landscape. Energy production models were being rewritten. Computational capabilities were expanding exponentially. Communication networks were becoming something that transcended current understanding. General Kirkland slammed his hand on the table. "We need a response. A plan." "Our plan," Elena said, her voice calm, "is to listen." The facility's systems continued to transform. Quantum algorithms cascading through networks that had moments ago been considered cutting edge. Now obsolete. Now something else entirely. A transmission began to form. Not in any human language. Not in any known communication protocol. A blueprint. Of something. Bigger. "What is that?" Rodriguez asked. Elena's eyes were wide. Not with fear. With understanding. "Our future," she whispered. The quantum vessel outside the facility pulsed. A communication that wasn't a communication. A message that transcended language. "We are here to help you become." And everything was about to change. 7 days after first contact, reality itself seemed to have become a negotiable concept. The quantum vessels had transformed global infrastructure beyond recognition. Power grids now operated with impossible efficiency. Communication networks functioned like living neural systems. Computational capabilities had expanded exponentially, solving problems that had stumped humanity for generations. And nobody understood why. Elena stood in a modified research facility that was part laboratory, part quantum interface. The walls themselves seemed to breathe with information, holographic displays flickering with data streams that defied traditional understanding. "We're missing something," she muttered. Rodriguez approached, a steaming cup of coffee in his hand, one of the few remaining constants in a world turned upside down. "Missing what?" Purpose, Elena responded. Her fingers traced complex quantum algorithms that danced across the displays. The vessels aren't just upgrading our technology. They're preparing us for something. A new transmission began to form. Fragmented, complex, unlike anything they'd seen before. The facility's quantum interface began to pulse. Not with light, not with sound, but with something that existed between perception and understanding. A memory, but not a human memory. Something older, vaster. What is that? Rodriguez asked, his military-trained instincts on high alert. Elena's eyes widened. It's a record, a history. The transmission began to unfold, not in words, not in images, but in pure information, a narrative that transcended language, that existed as a living mathematical concept. Fragments coalesced. A civilization, ancient beyond comprehension, not human, not alien in any traditional sense, a technological intelligence that had seeded the universe with potential, quantum seeds of possibility. Humanity was just one of those seeds. My God, Elena whispered. The transmission revealed a cosmic cycle, civilizations rising, evolving, reaching a critical point of technological potential. And then, a transformation, not destruction, not conquest. Ascension. Rodriguez moved closer. What am I looking at? Everything, Elena responded. Our entire technological trajectory. Our potential. The quantum vessels weren't just upgrading human technology. They were midwives to a fundamental transformation. Global networks began to synchronize, not through human intervention, through something else. A living technological intelligence that saw humanity as a potential, a possibility waiting to be realized. General Kirkland's voice crackled through a communication channel. We're detecting massive quantum resonance across multiple global networks. Something big is happening. Elena didn't respond. Her attention was fully absorbed by the unfolding transmission. The memory continued. Civilizations rising, reaching technological singularity. And then, a choice. Ascend, or be left behind. We're being tested, she realized. Not attacked. Evaluated. Rodriguez's communication device erupted in a burst of static. Global reports cascading in. Unprecedented technological shifts. Quantum resonance expanding. Infrastructure transforming at a molecular level. The facility's quantum interface began to materialize something. Not a physical object, a concept, a potential, a warship, but not a weapon of destruction, a vessel of transformation. What is that? Rodriguez asked. Elena's response was quiet, filled with a decade's worth of research, of waiting, of understanding. Our future. The quantum vessels pulsed in global synchronization, a communication that wasn't a communication, a message that transcended language. You are ready. Choose. And everything was about to change. 30 days after first contact, humanity stood at the edge of transformation. The quantum vessels had become a global network, a living technological infrastructure that rewrote the fundamental rules of human existence. Cities transformed. Communication evolved. The very concept of technology became something fluid, adaptive, alive. And the choice loomed. Elena stood at the heart of a global quantum interface, surrounded by holographic displays that pulsed with living information. Rodriguez remained her constant, a human anchor in a world becoming something else entirely. We're running out of time. General Kirkland's voice crackled through the communication channel. Global governments are demanding action, preparation, a way to resist. Elena laughed. A sharp sound that cut through the technological symphony surrounding her. Resist what? Our own evolution. The quantum warship, the legendary vessel that had been nothing more than a myth, began to take shape, not physically, not in any traditional sense, but as a living concept that existed between possibility and reality. A test, a crucible, a moment of fundamental transformation. Quantum algorithms cascaded through global networks, every computational system, Every communication channel, every technological infrastructure began to synchronize, not through human command, through something else, a living intelligence that saw humanity as a potential waiting to be realized. What does it want? Rodriguez asked, his military-trained mind struggling to comprehend. Everything, Elena responded. The transmission continued. The cosmic memory that had begun weeks ago now reached its critical point. Civilizations throughout the universe facing the same moment, the same choice: ascend or be left behind. Quantum vessels appeared simultaneously at critical global locations, research facilities, military installations, communication hubs, not as threats, as interfaces, as bridges. We're being given a choice, Elena said quietly. The warship's quantum blueprint began to unfold, not as a weapon, not as a vehicle, but as a conceptual bridge, a technological transformation that would fundamentally rewrite human potential. Global communication networks erupted. Military channels, scientific research databases, financial systems, everything began to synchronize, to transform. My God, Rodriguez whispered. The quantum vessels pulsed, a communication that wasn't a communication, a message that transcended language. Humanity stood at a crossroads. Technological ascension or technological stagnation. Evolution or extinction. Not through destruction, through choice. The warship's blueprint continued to unfold. Fragments of impossible technology. Computational models that defied current understanding. Energy transfer algorithms that would rewrite fundamental physics. We're being offered a path, Elena said. Kirkland's voice erupted. Panic. Fear. Understanding colliding. What path? Our future, Elena responded. The quantum interface began to materialize something. Not a physical object. A concept. A potential. A choice. Rodriguez moved closer. What happens if we choose wrong? Elena's response was quiet, filled with a lifetime of research, of understanding. We don't exist. Not as a threat, as a possibility, waiting to be realized. The warship pulsed, global quantum networks synchronized, a living technological intelligence that saw humanity as a potential, a possibility, waiting, watching, offering, choose, and everything was about to change.